Welcome to Absolutely Marvel in DC. My name's Benny, that is Sal, and this is Dylan. And today I promise we won't spend 20 minutes completely crapping on it.
No.
We're going to talk about the latest episode of Invincible, and I need to open up this episode by informing you, Sal. So here's the story of what happened at our last podcast over on the Comicstorian channel. I told Andy, like, Sal and I were talking about it, and Sal said that the Martian sequence was not in the comics, and Andy informed me that we are very wrong and that you're an idiot. Okay. Now, he said it all with love because Andy is like a hardcore Invincible fan.
Yes.
We did prove that it was after at least when I had read. Apparently, it was like issue 19 that Martian thing happened.
Really?
And at issue 12 is when Omni Man attacked.
Right.
So
that must have been right after I stopped reading too, because I think I read like the first 3 or 4 volumes. So like I saw the Omni Man Twist in the comics.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I stopped reading after I was like, because Comic Drake, who's also a huge Invincible fan, was the one who was like really trying to get me into Invincible way back when. He was like, read the first like this amount, and he gave them to me, and I read it, and I was like, yeah, I still don't like it. And he was like, you're wrong, and I gave it back to him. Right. I was like, sorry.
He took them back. He's like, you're wrong. Give me these. You don't deserve these.
So the reason I bring this up is as of Saturday night when I was watching Invincible, I then received a message from Andy, just so you guys know, what happened just much later in the comics, so it all happened.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So we now have an Invincible expert to inform us.
Good. It did not come up in the comments, I will say that.
It didn't?
No.
I'm going up what Andy told me. So
I defer to Andy on that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah. The general vibe that I've gotten from like the public watching this, like I have a friend who watches a bunch of like, he watches the CW shows, he watches like all the superhero schlock, and he hit me up and was like, have you seen that like The Boys like Amazon ripoff show? And I was like, you mean the one, you mean Invincible? Like the one based on a comic book? And he was like, oh, I didn't know. It's like, yeah, it's fine.
Right. I mean,
so I think a lot of people just haven't read the comic, which it's a small indie comic, so
which is great. I mean, like, I'm glad it's exposing them to the comic because, like, you know, I liked it up until issue 128, but
is it the reboot?
Yeah. And
that's when I got back in.
That's funny. Well, but you know what? That's great. Like, Kirkman is a genius when it comes to like selling comics and crafting a universe that like I find reprehensible. But like, I will say that it's a masterclass in getting fans interested in something that the whole of the comic book industry is like scratching their heads over how to get them in, right? Like, Kirkman knows how to build a universe and get people to like that universe and then die for it. And he's doing it with the show, and he's done it with the comics.
I mean, Invincible's had a super loyal fan base forever. I remember you and I going to New York Comic Con, and I think it was you or somebody else, but we were trying our hardest to get the New York Comic Con. No, Rob doesn't like Invincible.
No, I was going to say, I thought you were going to say, this is a very brief interlude where we were talking about how we were like, Rob, you've got to cover Invincible on Comics Explained. You will love it, and it will blow the hell up. And he was not convinced.
No. But I remember you and I looking for the Bloody Mark action figure, the Bloody Invincible one.
I have it. It's over there.
Yeah, because it was exclusive. And the fact that was an exclusive at Image Booth and it was super well received, and like you would see Invincible merch right next to Walking Dead merch, and Walking Dead was blowing the hell up.
It was the biggest thing. Yeah, easily. Yeah, no, I
remember the Negan bat. The Negan bat was the other thing everyone wanted. Everyone wanted a bloody Negan bat. Like,
I think I don't know anybody who doesn't have a Negan bat.
I don't have a Negan bat.
No, man. Well, Skybound, Comicstorian's P.O. Box is right in the description. Pick it up.
But no, I actually really enjoyed this episode. I felt the pacing was kind of corrected. We started to go a little bit more into the mother. Like this stuff is just, she no longer seemed to be a backseat character that happened to be bothered. Now she was proactively looking for answers.
I see it as they're turning her into the character she started out being in the comics. Where in the comics, she's just this introverted, completely broken, like dead to everything, uninterested, just detached person. And now, because of what she is certain her husband has done, she's starting to go inward and become this kind of detached person. And I'm like, that's an interesting way of explaining where that came from. They're two totally different methodologies. Like, they're two different character motivations. Like, one is, I'm dead to the world because my husband is Superman. And the other one is, like, my husband, Superman, is a murderer, and that has made me broken. Two very different characters, but equally interesting and valuable.
Yeah, I think I like the show version a little more, just because, like, in the comics, she always kind of, I mean, obviously for the little I read, she seemed like just kind of character that needed to exist because Mark needed a mom, but like not interesting enough. Like, it's one note, right? Like, oh, her thing is that she's dead inside because, you know, her husband is Superman, but we don't get to see, like, that turn, which I think that turn is more interesting. Like, give Mark an actual good parent, and then turn her into, like, you know, just nothing.
Like, even her speech, like, I trade you to be a superhero, Omni-Man. Yeah. Why can't you let me help with Mark, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that, all of that, I was just like, this is a much better episode for her, because she's coming across better. She looks more intelligent. She's not just like, I just am oblivious to the world. You know, like.
I for me, I liked the part of the appeal to me of the comic was that Mark is a great superhero because he reads comic books. And in this, it's obviously a show, and it's made to have a show audience, and so as a result, Mark is a great superhero because he loves his mommy. And his mom is just so morally correct. And okay. Like, and I like it. It's a different thing, but, like, okay. You know what I mean? Sure. Like, for me, it's like just Mark constantly being like, I got my ass kicked again. I'm constantly failing. Am I ever going to live up to it? As opposed to the contrast of the comic where he's like, I'm great at it already because I have all the powers. Like, I got all the powers, and I've been reading comics since I was a kid, so I'm ready to go. Like, I'm just good to go.
Right.
Great, let's do this. Like, Omni-Man was not motivated by the love of a good woman to become a superhero. He's there to soften the world up for domination.
Right.
So, you know, it's not that he's a great Superman, it's just that he happens to be Superman in this universe.
Yeah.
But Mark is better because he was molded by the comic book superhero structure. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Omni-Man is Superman without, like, the actual moral foundation from which superheroes spring, and Mark is, and that's how Mark overpowers Omni-Man, like, ideologically and theoretically as well as physically. That, for me, that's like the real fun and juicy parts of Invincible, and why I'm having such a hard time just getting into the show. I like it, I appreciate it. I can't believe we're in a world where, like, I have to say an opinion, and then I have to, like, preface it by or afterwards be like, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, just because I say these things doesn't mean I hate the show, and I'm not a hater. Right. but I'm not, like, this episode I watched, I was like, oh, this is a good episode. Like, not that I thought, oh, for a change. I just happened to enjoy the episode. I thought it was good, but it's not why I like Invincible.
I will say this is definitely my favorite episode. I kind of watch this show the same way I watch, like, you know, Supergirl or something, which is just like, it's on and I'm watching it. It's not like a...
That's definitely how Natalie and I did. I'm not going to lie. With Falcon Winter Soldier last night, because we watched Invincible Saturday night, then we watched Falcon Winter Soldier Sunday night. With Falcon Winter Soldier, I was sitting there watching it. With Invincible, I definitely started it with, so what's going on in my app game?
Yep.
Mark's doing something. Cool.
And I think, honestly, like, a large part of that is, and you guys have touched on this a little bit, a large part of that is the animation. And I will, like, man, the animation in this show, I'm going to be a little harsher than I think you guys were. It is abysmal. And it's to me, like, I think it's a little unforgivable.
But we said that early on. They do so many shortcuts on the animation side.
Yeah.
It is cheap. It's like cheaper than the like DC animated movies, which are already pretty cheap, and it's uninspired. And the like I was okay with it a little bit before, like, I think episode 2 or 3, when they started putting, like, when they started really relying on the horrible 3D for, like, backgrounds and certain scenes.
God. My wife pointed it out. She was like, look behind them. It was in the cafeteria scene. She's like, look at that. And I'm like, to be fair, I would not have noticed necessarily, but now I notice every time.
Yeah.
I noticed immediately, and it's just like, if this was a show like funded by some indie studio, fine. Like, you got to get like Ruby is Rooster Teeth's animation. Like, that Ruby has always kind of looked horrible. And
You're about to piss off a lot of Ruby fans.
oh, I know. I did a review of the Ruby manga, and I made a lot of people angry. But it's that you can excuse that a little bit because that's like a very small indie studio. This is Amazon.
Yeah.
Right, but it's Amazon subcontracting to an animation studio. I think it's one of those things where it's just like, honestly, this is one of those things, and it's something that we as comic book fans forgive very much more than any other. Like, if it weren't cheap, it wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. Like every DC animated movie, in the last 15 years, it's like, well, it's this or nothing. And
I mean, you're not wrong. That's a good counterpoint. But I will say the DC animated movies, while they've gotten cheaper over the years, and we have noted that, where it's been like, you guys used to be the peak of whatever, and then it got to the point of like, they're still good, but you could be so much better. Like,
yeah, it could be good, but it can be better.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But I don't know. Even with their cheapest animation. And maybe it's because they're trying to make a lot of Invincible episodes as opposed to an hour and a half movie.
Yeah,
but
they're trying to they're being smart with their budget, or maybe not, because like the show will lose the audience if the audience can't stomach the animation. Mm-hmm. But they're like, if you want multiple seasons, you got to trim the budget somewhere. You
right. So do we need to see him moving around with his flight, or can we just zoom in and out of a clip art?
Right. And like, listen, I love Walton Goggins, but like, does he need to be in this show? Like, he is a coveted actor. Like, he's in real things all the time, and I love him as Cecil. I really do. He's a perfect voice because he's a really good, high caliber movie and TV actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where you cut the budget. Like, you don't need to hire J.K. Simmons to play Omni-Man. You don't need to hire Sandra Oh to play the mom. Like, these are people who are, like, I'm sure most of your budget is going towards.
And they're great, by the way.
Stephen Yeun?
Stephen Yeun, yeah.
But you know what? But I guarantee that was their strategy, a PR strategy. Get these big names in so you'll watch the show.
Yeah. Each of them has their own audience, brings them all in. Yeah. It makes sense. Because it used to be, there was a philosophy, and it's since been disproven, but cream rises to the top. And it's like, if this was like if they had resurrected the animation team from that one episode of Batman in the Animated Series, Heart of Ice, and you got just the best voice actors in anime and Western animation history, and they all got together, and we made like the perfect 1-to-1 ratio execution of what the comic book looked like, but moving.
Right.
It would fail so hard because no one would know it was on. Yeah, and it would bankrupt itself. And it's like, we gotta, you gotta make your money somehow, and you gotta get the audience to be aware of it. And it's like, if you want 2 seasons of this, it's gonna look like shit sometimes.
Yeah, if I were to make a compromise, like I can stomach the action scenes looking great and the dialogue scenes kind of being really stiff. I can stomach that. Somebody please remove the 3D software from this studio's computers. Just, it looks horrible. It never looks good. I've never liked it in anything. Like, they started doing that in Pokemon a long time ago, and I was like, this looks like garbage. With that. Don't mix media.
Let's go back to the main plot, though. Let's talk about the big moment. There's one thing I wanted to ask you guys about. But when they fly, like, I loved the message in this one. You're above that, Mark. You don't have to go help out the little guy, Mark. I liked that message, and then him being like, no. It plays into what you were saying, Sal, about, no, he is a superhero. And while his focus is going to be on that planetary scale, he's not going to forget the little guy. He's not going to try and forget that there's a whole section of this area that needs help. When he was going into that penthouse, was I crazy, or is there a scene where Omni-Man was overlooking it? Or it showed
he was.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, no, he
For
was.
a split second.
Yeah.
Okay, because then when they broke in, I was like, there's Omni-Man. He's going to save his son. No, it's the Guardians. Like, what?
No. He's like, no, I'm not endorsing this. B, I need to see Mark get his ass kicked and learn a lesson. And C, I'm watching the new Guardians to make sure that they're weak enough so that I can beat them when the Viltrumites come.
Oh, I didn't even think about it that way. Yeah.
He deliberately made this Guardians crappy.
They were pretty bad. They're
horrible. It's terrible. Are you kidding me? Like they're the worst. And like that's exactly what Omni-Man was planning. And it's a genius move. It's just like and it's a genius move that I think took 2 issues to get to. But I'm glad it's a whole season arc.
Sounds not holding that against it at all.
I will say to complement this show a little bit. The action scene where they are all fighting is just great on its own, but the decision, like, there was very clearly a decision to not put music under it, and I think that was a good decision.
Agreed.
I think that's a good, like, directing way to just say to just show exhaustion and, like, not propel, like, in a show like Supergirl, there would have been like NSYNC playing under this action scene. But
he's not wrong. He's not wrong at all.
which I think was, and I like both of them. I like both.
Or
of those
like, or like
decisions.
never gonna back down or something like.
Yeah, exactly.
This is my fight song.
But but this is just very clearly like the point was to show like they are getting ruined, and that's what we need to see in all of its
what
glory.
I loved is they never really made a real comeback. Like even when they were like, "We're making a comeback," you don't know who you messed with, and it's like, boom, you're dead. Like
yeah,
right.
No, I actually that was some really like tense and fun TV watching where they triumphantly arrive. And then everyone gets their asses handed to them, and I was like, "This is good. This is good show making." By the way, I just realized that Mahershala Ali plays Titan, and I'm like, "That's another place you could cut some money."
Right? Yeah.
He's
I didn't even notice
great. He's great, by the way, like because he's an Academy Award-winning actor.
Right.
yeah.
But and Titan, a character that I like barely remember. Great arc, great motivation. I loved everything about him. The twist I saw coming a mile away, but I still was like, this is fun. This is cool.
I actually did not see that twist coming.
Really?
Yeah, I don't remember it in the comics, and I did not see it coming. So when it rolled around, and he's like, "I'm in charge." I'm like, I should have seen that coming.
I don't even remember the robot face guy. Like, I don't even remember if he's in the comic or not. Andy will have to.
Metalhead or whatever.
Yeah, Metalhead. Andy will correct me, but like, I really don't remember him even in the comics, much less what role he played.
I loved his voice. Because it
was a cool voice.
You could tell someone was in the mixing booth going, "How much auto-tune is too much auto-tune?"
Right.
It's fun. I love
cool
that.
Because usually the cop out there is just like throw a low pass on the voice and suddenly it sounds like it's like a tinny robot. But this was I hadn't seen that before. I hadn't seen like a robot be like an auto-tune machine. That's cool.
Right?
Yeah,
No,
that was pretty cool.
I dug it.
So I think overall, and then of course we had the big smashing of Mark. The only doubts that I have to the moment of Mark being destroyed is the show's not ending. So like I'm not like, oh no, what's gonna happen to Mark? He's the title character.
Well, and my thing was like, it's too bad. It's another one of those comic book things where I'm like, Mark's biggest ass kicking comes from his father.
Right.
That should be the scary thing. Is like Mark never gets his ass kicked until he fights his father. And that is like, there's the real tension. And in this, it's like, Mark's going to learn, and it's like, we get it, Omni-Man's a jerk. He's like, Mark's going to learn, and if he's not going to learn, then he better die, because I live forever, so I can definitely have, like, more kids. And I probably do, and in fact, I do. Don't ding me. But yeah.
I like how it sounds like, oh, hold on, I gotta be careful here because the Invincible hardcore is gonna.
And they're all named Andy, and they're gonna DM me and be like, why am I not on this show?
It's funny because he brought up I don't get to talk to Sal that much because we don't hang out directly. You don't play video games with us. He's like, so the next time he sees me, he's just gonna be like, you jackass.
No, I don't care. It's actually I actually welcome it. It's helpful because I read this series years ago.
That's my problem too. Like, and I stopped after the big turd, and the comic kept going, and I'm like, I think that Kirkman guy's run his course. This ain't gonna last 10 more issues.
I knew that was gonna be a thing. I saw that literally when I saw the costume. I'm like, this is something special.
The
His
costume's
logo.
really good. Ryan
His
Otley.
costume is the Image logo.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so good. Yeah.
So smart. Anyway.
All right, guys. Well, I think we've come across that we enjoyed this and we liked it. It is. Andy said outright, it is altering the timeline. They are stretching. They're taking these other plots that Mark learns lessons from to put them before the Omni Man turn. So it's going to be interesting to see how they change this all around. I don't have much more to say other than I really did enjoy this one, actually. It's not that I was going... Maybe because I went into it with the mentality of, like, stop waiting for the comic to happen and just enjoy the show.
Exactly.
It still has its problems. Like, if I have to pick this or Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm definitely going with the Disney Plus model. But I'm not against this.
No, and I hope I hope that Invincible's selling comics. Like, I hope that the show is selling Invincible books because A, new comics, that's great. B, Image comics, so maybe I'll find some other, like, fun indie books as a result of that. And C, it will hopefully springboard into normalizing more show adaptations of series so we can get, like... Because some things, because of the nature of computer graphics today, like, you could just... And will see, like, a Sandman show, live action.
Yeah.
Like, you're literally going to see Sandman made real. And it's like, do we need that? But, there is something to be said for animation, and there are strengths to animation versus just trying to make it as real as possible using live action.
That's what I think. That's one of the reasons why the animation bothers me so much, is because I want there to be a superhero animated show or movie or something that is like, you watch this show and then you watch one clip from, like, the Looney Tunes and it's like completely different playing fields.
Well, literally just
so
watch
insanely better.
any DC animated show from, like, the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
It's like, can we get back to that? Maybe.
Right? Can we go back 25 years to better animation? How did that happen?
Everyone started trying to find shortcuts. That's exactly how it happened. They just all looked for
you
shortcuts.
got it.
But all right, anyway, you guys, this has been absolutely Marvel in DC, and next week we'll be discussing the next episode of Invincible. Thank you so much for joining us, and please stick around at the channel. We talk about all your favorite CW shows. I think we're actually talking about all of them except Batwoman, and I think it's going to stay
And
that
Black
way.
Lightning.
Oh yeah, I was
Is it
supposed to
still
catch up
on?
with that. That's Black Lightning's still going, which I kind of weird because season 2 was kind of wonky. But I will try to catch up. Either way, we're talking about most of the CW shows, all the Disney Plus shows, whatever movies and trailers drop. This is our channel, guys. We get to have our fun, and we love having you be a part of our community. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time right here.